Hey, it's Dark Knight Admin, and in today's admin prep, we're going to review the Object Manager and the Lightning App Builder. We're going to cover standard custom objects, parent-child relationships, master detail relationships, lookups, junction relationships, and record types. We're going to talk about page layouts. We're going to talk about deleting fields, creating fields, why we need them. We're also going to talk about page layouts and how to assign them, look at different record types, and why we would use record types as well, and go from there. So first things first, some of the common standard objects. These are the standard objects, are the objects that come with Salesforce. So if you purchase Salesforce, these are the objects that you get by default. The typical ones you have are account, contact, opportunity, lead, case, activities, which are your tasks and events, your products, campaign members, users, assets. Those are the more commonly used ones. If you want the full list, check out that link right there. I'll also post it in the description. Full relationships are that the contact and opportunity look up to the account, cases look up to account and contacts, activities look up to just about all objects. Products are its own little thing that you use later when you set up opportunities. You have opportunity products, you assign the products to those opportunity products. Campaigns and campaign members, if you set up campaigns, you need campaign members to be part of that. Users, those are the people that you log in. So you yourself as admin are a user. Then assets are products that that company or account owns. So assets look up to accounts. By default, they also can have relationships to opportunity products as well. Custom objects. They're designed to support a process and gather information. Example of a custom object would be a certification object to track the number of certifications you have that you're seeking. Just remember, these are objects that are not included with Salesforce. You have to build them from scratch. Every object has standard fields. All those standard objects come with a lot of pre-built standard fields with them, but by default, all standard objects will always have these fields. They'll always have a name, a last modified date, a created by, at the very least. If you have multi-currency turned on, you'll have a currency field there as well. And a owner field may or may not be there, depending on if it's a detail and a master detail relationship, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But typically, every record needs to have an owner. It's either going to have the owner field populated, or it's going to inherit its owner from its master, if it's a master detail relationship. So it would inherit whatever the owner of the parent record is. There are some fields that can never be modified in the sense that you can't physically change them yourself. So that's the create date, last modified date, record creator, and last modified user. These are your system audit fields. You can't change these. You can change like last modified and last modified date, last modified user. If you need to load historical data, so let's say you've created a record, you have a record that was created before you got Salesforce and you want to backdate it, you can set these fields on a creation with your data loader. You can set your create date, you can set your last modified, record create, and last modified user. You can set those values when you create a record. That is the only time you can ever set them. Otherwise, it's always going to be automatically done for you by Salesforce. There are a lot of different types of custom fields within Salesforce. I can go through all of them. We'll go through some of the relationship ones, but a lot of them are pretty self-explanatory. The purpose of custom fields is either to link other records together, but it's to gather or aid your users by gathering more information. So you're creating a custom field to store a value for something that is needed. So here's a list of the rest of the fields that you can create right now. Most commonly, people use the checkbox, the email, the number, the phone, the pick list, and the text area ones. There's other ones in there you can utilize as well to make sure that the data type that you select here matches the type of field that you want. So you don't want to be creating a date field if it's a field that's supposed to be tracking text information, because date's only going to show a date for that particular value that you select. One thing to note, when it comes to pick list field, you can select a color. So if you have a pick list field and you have all these different values, you can assign colors to them. And these colors get used in your reports and dashboards. This is really helpful if you are building a dashboard that references the same values over and over again. So if you have multiple components on a dashboard and you explain the data from a particular pick list, you may want all the values for yes and no to always be the same color from one chart to the other, otherwise they'll vary and it can be misleading. This way you can assign those values and then the reports and dashboards will utilize that value. You may be wondering, hey, I created a field, but now I wanted to delete it. just a reminder, you can only delete custom fields. You can't delete standard fields. All your standard fields will always be there. You can remove access to them, like we discussed in your profile. You can remove the access to the field that way. You can remove from the page layout, which we'll talk about how to do that in a little bit. But once you delete a field, you lose access to the data in the field. It is removed from the page layout and any reports. So if you delete it, you can't see it anymore because it's gone. You can recover it from the recycling bin for 15 days. So it sits in the recycling bin for 15 days. As soon as it hits that 15-day marker, it's out. So you can't recover it at that point. The only way you could ever recover that after that point is if you had a backup copy of it that you could then upload. That backup copy is only reflective when you actually download the data. But once it's gone, it's gone. There's no getting it back. These are your different types of search settings. So you can set up your customized search setting layouts. So at the object level, you can set them up. You can customize your search results, how many you want to return. You can set up your synonym groups. So these are fields that are liked. So if you commonly refer to your account as a different value or a different naming convention, you can create synonym groups for those things. You can also disable objects from search. And you may wonder, why would everyone do that? It makes your search faster. So if there's a particular object that you never want to search because you don't want to return the results of that, you can disable that from the search. A little side note, whenever you're data loading, try to do that on off hours. It's just better to create your data when people aren't in the system. That way it doesn't bog down the system when people are trying to actually work in it, if you can. Also, limit the number of fields you want to search. It does make your search faster. If you have a lot of fields you have to search through, it just can take longer to process that data to return the results. And just remember, not all fields are searchable. Things like formula fields you can't search on. It's not going to return a value. So if you're trying to build a unique key using formula fields and you want to look at that unique key, it's not going to be searchable. If you want to learn more, I'll post a description below about how to set up and manage Salesforce search as well. A little note here, not all objects are searchable. All custom auto numbers and fields that are set to external ID do not enter leading zeros. All custom fields of the type email or phone are searchable. All custom field types that are text area, long text area, and rich text area are searchable. So these are your searchable fields. Just be mindful of that. All right, let's talk about some object relationships. So relationships are established when you use a lookup or a master detail to link records together. Lookup relationships allow you to relate objects to each other. So I have object 1 and object A. This relationship is not required, so I can create an object 1 by itself, record by itself, and then create an object A record by itself, totally independent. But if I want to link them together, I need to build a relationship between those. So in this scenario, I would create a lookup field on object A that looks up to object 1, thus making object 1 the parent and object A the child in this scenario. This allows a many to one. So that means object 1 is R1 and object A is a many. So I can have many object A records related to object 1. Typical relationships you see like this. Out of the box, account and contact are similar to this, where object A1 is the account, object A is the contact. That's a common relationship you can see between. That's just a standard lookup relationship. One thing to note with lookup relationships, you can't use roll-up summary fields. If you want to use that functionality, you actually have to use the next one, which is master detail relationships. So this is very similar to the lookup relationship, except that it's got a master detail, which means that object A here is going to inherit all its permissions from object 1. This relationship is required. So whenever I create an object A, I have to make sure I populate the lookup, the relationship field, the master detail to object 1. So I can't create object A without having object 1 record associated to it. I can create roll-up summary fields. So on object 1 here, I can create my roll-up summary fields to summarize all the different values from the object A. So I can do row counts, I can count the number of records, I can summarize certain date fields or currency fields or number fields. So I can summarize those values. I can take max, mins, medium. I can take all those values with a roll-up summary field on this. So I can create roll-up summary fields on object 1 that summarize data from object A. Still allows many to one, so that means I can have multiple object A's records, but tied to one single object, 1 record. I own object 1. I also own object A through that implicit relationship there. So object 1 is going to, if I'm the owner of that, I also own this. And since I can't create an object A without this, it inherits all its permissions. So whoever the owner of this is also going to be the owner of this record. Same mindset, whoever can see this can also see this, provided they have access to this particular object. Object 1 here is the master. Object A is the detail. So this is the more or less a child in this relationship. The next relationship we're going to talk about here is junction objects. And this is when we need to have a many-to-many relationship. So object 1 and object 2 are both parents in the scenario. Object A is our junction object. So that means we're going to be able to relate object 1 to object 2 through this junction and vice versa. So on object A here, I have a master detail to object 1. I also have a master detail to object 2. Object A inherits its permissions from the first record that gets created. You can do roll up summary fields here, roll up summaries here. But what's really nice is here that I can have object 1 here and build a junction that I can relate object 1 to an object 2. And I can have a different object 1 record related to the same object record over here. So it allows me to have multiple object 1s and multiple object 2s related to each other through this junction object right here. Like again, object 1 is the master, object A is a detail, object 2 is also a master in this scenario as well. Great for many to many. Suppose what you want to choose for that. All right, record types. Supports a different type of process on the same object. So on the count, you can have a record type for customer, vendor, and potential customer. You can gather different kinds of info based on record type. So you can have different fields, different page layouts. You can gather information. So they're all accounts in the sense that they're business entities, but you want to gather different types of information because there are different types of businesses that you want to gather information from. So you have a different layout per record type, per profile. You can control the pick list values for each of the record types. So you can use the same pick list field in each record type, but have different values for that are only pertinent to that particular record type. You can also control the creation of a record type by profile. So I can have a profile and say I can create a customer and vendor, but I can't create potential customer. Doesn't mean I can't see potential customer records. It just means I can't create that type of record for that particular record type. So here's a little example of our record types with the pick list field. So I have a field called account source, and these are available values. There's a selected values, and I have a record type called business account. And I've selected all the values, but if I want to, I can remove some of these values to the available values, and I can also set my own default for this record, for this record type for this particular pick list field. So it's a nice, cool way where we can control the different pick list values per record type. Down here, we have our profiles and record types. I have the different profiles here, the different record types. So I have a master, business account, sales, and test. I can control which layouts. So these are different types of layouts I have. And I can assign them either by record type and by profile, so I can make them completely unique if I need to be. But this just allows me to assign different page layouts by record type. So I can have a business account record type layout if I want. I can have a sales account layout, and I can also have a completely different layout for a different record type if I wanted to. If you have multiple record types for a particular user for a particular profile, you can either set the default at the profile level, or that user can go to their own preferences and set the default record type for that object they want if they have more than one. Because our user can set their own preferences on what the default record type is. The options will be based on the available record type. So this is just an example of a record type selection, or you can see that on the account opportunity cases, there's different ones and they have multiple record types, so they can see which one by default is, and they can go ahead and select a different default if they. The page layout, we have our detail layout. This is the page layout. Then we have our lightning layout, which is right here. One thing to note here is we have our details tab and our lightning layout, which is actually going to display all the details that you have from your page layout. The layout controls what's being displayed. So we have our different fields here. The little red asterisk means that it's a required field. You can then also modify. There's a little bit of learn wrench here on the edit page. You can modify the settings to make it required or view only as well. In order to do that, you want to go to your page layouts here. And then on the top here, we have our different fields. So we have all the different fields that are within that object. So there's all the different fields you can have. You can actually grab them and select them and drag them onto the page layout here. You can create different sections. So if you want to group different fields together, so if you have all your accounting fields, you can create a section called accounting and put all your fields for accounting in that one spot. So that it's easy to find. If you want to change the assignment, so back to what we were talking about before, when we can assign page layouts via the profile and record types. So we have profile and record types. The first thing here we can do is we can look at the profile. So across the board, we can say one profile can have all the same layouts if we want. Reviewer, if we always want them to see the same thing every time they look at an account, we can give them the same profile across the board there. Or we can do it by record type. So I can do business account. I can say all business account records need to look like this. Makes it a little bit easier so you can see the distinction between the two. Or I can actually get really into the nitty-gritty thing. I can say per profile, per record type, I can change the page layout. So if everyone there for the account reviewer, I could completely change this record type, this page layout for this record type and profile, make it completely different than the rest. So you have a lot of granularity here on what you can do for visibility by profile and record type. So you can do it straight across for the profile, you can do it all the way for the record type, or you can do individual mechanisms, or you can do a combination of all those depending on what your needs are for that particular profile and record type and object. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. I produce Salesforce tips every week. I also produce other content like what you're viewing today when I get a chance. So with landing page layouts, this is the view you see. So we have our details here. That's the page layout. That's what we just talked about. But we can control these other types of things. So we have our activity, we have our feed there. We have all these different components on the side here. We can actually grab those components and pull them in here. If you create a flow, you can grab a flow and pull it in here, and you can create different tabs. So this is what controls the view that you see. So you have two different page layouts. You have your lightning page layouts, and then the page layouts like just discussed. This allows you to build it however you want. You can configure things. You have a lot of flexibility with this, so you can change things around. But this is what you see when you're in Lightning. One thing to note with Lightning page layouts, you can have the same Lightning page layout across the board for everyone, but the detail section can change. You can completely customize it by app. So if you have different apps, you can say the page layout. If you're viewing the account and app, a sales app, it looks like this, and if you're viewing the account in the service app, it looks like this. So you can change the Lightning layout. You can even get into a little more granular by doing it per record type or profile as well. So you have a bunch of different ways we can assign how the Lightning page layout will be viewed by the end user. So this allows a lot more granularity. This is flat across the board. This is what it looks like. The only thing that would vary, it would be the details of the page layout if you actually have that set up. Just about every object you have, you can create a list view for. It's a simple report of the object. It allows you to filter and show fields. You can enable inline editing underneath your user interface settings. It allows you to modify these fields on this list view. You can add filters. So by default, this one over here is showing you my account. You can pin your tabs. So if by default, when you go to a new object, it's going to show you recently viewed. If you haven't seen any records, don't be alarmed. It's because you haven't clicked any records yet. So you can go ahead and change your list view to a different one, typically all, so you can see all the records. And once you find a list view or you build a list view that you like, you can go ahead and pin that. And that's going to pin that record, so that list view. So when you come back to it, the list view is going to be the first one that comes up every single time instead of the recently viewed. One thing to note, if you clear a cache, that can get reset there. Not a big deal. Just go back and repin it. If you want to create a new record from the list view, you can click that new. That allows you to create a new record. If you want to create a new list view, you can go to that little gear right here, click new, and then you can give it a new list view name. You can specify who can see it. So you can say, only I can see this list view. All users can see this list view, or you can also share it with a group of users as well. Typically, if you're doing this, make sure you have to have right permission to be able to share the list views. But you can always create one for yourself, but you may not be able to share it with other people depending on your permissions that you have. Once you're in there, you can build your different list field filters. So I can say, I want account ID where equals this. Any of the fields that are on your object, you can use in your filters, and you can filter on it. So you can build very specific list views for specific things within your object tab. If you want to control the different fields that display in your list view, you just go ahead and click the gear there. You select your fields to display, and you can select the different fields that are going to be available. In the scenario, recently viewed is not one that you can customize, but if you have like all one or a personal one you've created, you can go ahead and customize that to your needs. Buttons and actions. On every page layout, you can create buttons or actions. These are used when you need to customize the business process. Buttons and links are over here. These aren't used as much as they used to be. Typically, they're only used for URLs or Visualforce pages. Like I said, not used very much in Lightning. The action is more along the lines of what gets utilized mostly for that. You can create a record, you can call a flow, you can call visual for us. You can do a bunch of different types of things. In this scenario, we're just creating a record. It's displaying some fields for us. We can actually set predefined fields as well for that button as well. So we can do some really cool things with those actions. When you create actions, if you want to create a global action, that's this little plus sign right here. So anywhere in Salesforce, if you're logging to Salesforce and you want to click that plus sign, then you want to have the different list of global actions. You can go ahead to your normal setup menu, type in global actions, and create all your different actions there. You can also then set different global actions per profile as well. And if you're ever wondering what the little bell means, that's just your notifications. So if you have overdue tasks, you can go ahead and get those notifications there and see what's going on. Thanks for coming, and I hope to see you next time.